Paul talks about them in Romans 11:29. He said, "For the gifts and the callings of God are irrevocable." That means that they are final, they are unchangeable, and they cannot be reversed. So whatever He has gifted you with, they are yours, and it is for you to walk in alignment with when we talk about gifts and callings. And the thing about Paul distinguished them intentionally. So the gifts is what God gives you to function with, and a calling is why God put you here and what you are assigned to accomplish. And one of the ones that really stood out to me when I think about Joseph. Somebody was teaching on this as well. They had mentioned this in a teaching, and what he said was that he said Joseph's gift was dreams. So he dreamed the dream. That's the dream that got him in the hot water in the first place, right? But God had given him a prophetic dream about his life, and that basically his brothers would be below him. He would be above his siblings and parents. And so dreams, his dream. So his gift to interpret dreams is what got him before the king. And so his gift is the one that made room for his calling. The gift of dream interpretation is what made room for the calling he had on his life to save his bloodline, to save his family's home, to save his family, right? Because that's what wound up happening is that when he was made governor over all of the king's things, that he was able to bring his family into Egypt and save his bloodline from the famine. And so understanding that his gift of dream interpretation is what made room for the prophetic dream to even come into fruition. And so that's the thing about God, right? When we really think about it, when we really lay hold to what God is how he operates and how sovereign he is and how all-knowing and how all-powerful he is and how things come into alignment when we don't even understand that they're coming into alignment. I can't imagine Joseph thinking that his prophetic dream was going to come into alignment as he said in prison. But to be able to stand to have an understanding of what that dream meant. And he very well could have, because once you get something into your head and it kind of doesn't go away. There were things that have been told to me, and I've been sitting with them for years. Even though in my current state, in my state, the state that I was in at the time, especially when the prophetic word was given, that was the last thing I was physically living. But in my mind, I knew that this was a thing that was spoken into my life, and I received it with joy, even when it was given on that day. So Joseph's gift, the very gift of the dream, of the prophetic dream, and the interpretation of dreams, made room for his calling, and his calling was to save his bloodline. So And I believe that when we have a real understanding of what our callings are, what our calling is, that we become unwavering in it. Like Christ was unwavering, even though he cried out to God in the garden, but his resolve was nevertheless that God's will continue to be done, and that he knew what he came for. He knew what his assignment was. And even though I know that I don't want to do this in this moment, in my flesh, I do not want to do this, but I will, because that's the assignment, and he carried it out. And to God be the glory, and we thank God for the cross. We thank God for his willingness and his nevertheless spirit of the cross, and may we also have a nevertheless spirit when we are when we understand what our assignments are here in this earth. So when we talk about gifts, we talk about things, the manifestation of different gifts, and it's found in 1 Corinthians 12:7-11. And the manifestation of gifts was words of knowledge, word of wisdom, faith, gifts of healing, working of miracles, prophecy, discerning of spirits, and different kinds of tongues and interpreting tongues. So we understand that these operate as the Spirit wills. So it's not something we command or demand, right? Because I can't command or demand a prophetic word to come forth to be able to give to nobody, or words of wisdom and words of knowledge that comes from the Spirit only comes from the Spirit. So it's not by me demanding them. It comes through the Spirit being yielded to the Spirit in order for the Spirit to use whomever He chooses at that moment to be able to give these things to it to operate in this way. And then they had ministry, body gifts. So the gifts of the body that comes from 1 Corinthians 12:28, and it talks about some more in Romans 12:6-8. And so those were helps, administration, mercy, exhortation, teaching, giving, leadership, serving, hospitality, and government. So these is how we serve ministries in practical senses, right? So if we are, whatever we do practically in helps, whether we greeting or ushering or working in the back rooms with administration, whatever we're doing, these are the things that helps us work in the ministries practically with hands and feet, putting hands and feet to these things in ministry. So when we talk about and of course the office of leadership gifts were apostles, was found in Ephesians 4:11-12, and it's apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers, right? These are not just abilities, and I think people look at them as such, as really like as offices, but these are people that God gives to the church to equip the saints. And we need these equippings in each of these ways. And so these are the people that God gives to the church, so the church can be equipped for the work. And so when I think about when we dealt with callings, we was talking about how we was talking about Joseph and how Joseph's gift made room for his calling, the very call that he had on his life. So calling is by God's choice, of course, and it is known by heaven before earth knows it. And he talked about that, and Jeremiah was the one that mentioned that in Jeremiah 1:5. So it is tied to purpose. And so when we think about callings according to Scripture, we think about Samuel. Samuel was a prophet to the nations. We talk about Paul. He was called to be an apostle to the Gentiles. John the Baptist, he was the forerunner for Christ. And Moses was the deliverer and the lawgiver. And David was the king and the psalmist. So when we even and David literally even how he even served the king. But when we talk about the examples of callings, this is who God had ordained us to be. So it's not something that we decide to be, but it's who He has literally called us to be. And so when we think about callings as the direction and gifts being the tools, that's what I see in Joseph's case. When I see the dreams which led to the actual call itself, because I don't know if he was clear about the calling at the time, but how it was just amazing how even after everything that he suffered, even after I call it the wilderness stage. I believe that all of us have a wilderness stage that we have to go through, a time of testing, a time of pruning, a time of really drawing near to God. I believe that there is even a time of solitude that we go through in this stage of preparation before our callings come forth. And so Joseph sat in that prison during his preparation stage. So whatever he did prepared him for when he went before the king, prepared him before so he could even serve the people even after his calling came. And I believe that to be the case for even these men that we talked about, David. I believe that David's time as a shepherd and David's time on the run from Saul literally prepared his heart to lead the people, prepared his heart to serve the people, to serve in his calling, which is to be king. And same thing for Moses. When Moses was in Midian, I believe that he had to have been taken away from the palace because I believe that he could not lead these people out of Egypt straight from the palace, but he had to be prepared and tested and pruned and to be able to lead these people out of Egypt, to be able to have a heart for the people. I believe that in that time in Midian, that God cultivated his heart for the people in such a way that he would literally lay down his life for the people of Israel, and that's what this deliverer did. And even as he served them in the capacity, he didn't just serve as a deliverer and a lawgiver. He served as a intercessor above of the intercessory that Moses did for the Israelites. Had to be a place of cultivation, had to be a place of being in the presence of God, because he was ready to lay down his life for them. He was every time that they did things that were outside of the will of God, the first thing he did was brought them before the throne of grace. He brought them before the Lord. And I believe that was absolutely something that was cultivated in him.